The late 19th century was a period of frantic, hidden discovery. In the 1880s and 1890s, an American lawyer and author named Ingersoll Lockwood published a series of obscure novels that went completely unnoticed by the masses. The titles seemed like standard eccentric literature of the Victorian era. Travels and Adventures of Little Baron Trump and Baron Trump's Marvellous Underground Journey, but centuries later, the pages of these forgotten books read less like fiction and more like a terrifyingly precise historical log. Lockwood's protagonist is a wealthy, aristocratic boy who lives in a structure called Castle Trump. He is guided on a journey to find a literal portal to another world by a mysterious, powerful mentor named Don. If that linguistic echo isn't enough to make your spine tingle, Lockwood followed the series in 1896 with a final book titled 1900, or The Last President. Now, in this manuscript, he shifts his focus away from fantasy and directly into political prophecy. He describes a populist outsider candidate from the West, a champion of the common man who shocks the world by winning the presidency on Tuesday, November 3rd. Immediately following his victory, a massive angry mob organizes under the lead of radical socialists and anarchists. They gather at a massive hotel on Fifth Avenue in New York City to protest the results, screaming that this president will destroy the established order. The city is plunged into darkness and chaos, sparking the rapid destabilization and ultimate collapse of the American Republic. Fast forward more than a century, a real estate mogul transforms the global political landscape. He rules his empire from a towering dark glass and brass obelisk located at 725 Fifth Avenue. Trump Tower. It stands on the exact real-world street predicted by Lockwood's final book as ground zero for the collapse. When you analyze the timeline closely, a profound shift in perspective occurs. The modern teenager, Baron Trump, isn't actually the protagonist of the 19th century manuscript. He is a living homage. The person actually living out the destiny of little Baron Trump, the bold, disruptive outsider, upending the established order, is his father, Donald Trump. Before he ever announced the run for the presidency, DJT chose the highly unique name Barron for his youngest son. It wasn't a random choice. It was a multi-generational signature, a deliberate stamping of the bloodline to signal that the family was actively stepping into the pages of a pre-written script. Now, to fully dissect how deeply this predictive programming has embedded in our reality, we must perform a forensic analysis of Ingersoll Lockwood's 1896 text, or The Last President. So when you place the literal events of the book side by side with modern American history, the similarities cease to be mere coincidences and reveal themselves as terrifyingly precise blueprints. In Chapter 1, Lockwood details the exact date of the seismic political shift. Tuesday, November 3rd. In the book, the populist president-elect achieves victory by uniting the world class against the entrenched financial elite of the North. The immediate reaction from the established order is not peaceful, but calculated chaos. Lockwood writes that the city of New York staggered under the blow like a huge ocean liner with plunges full speed into a mighty iceberg. The book notes that the very first place to feel the fury of the rioting mob is Madison Square and the Fifth Avenue Hotel. In the 1890s, the Fifth Avenue Hotel was the premier gathering place for the ultra-wealthy elite and corporate tycoons of Manhattan. It sat between 23rd and 24th Streets on Fifth Avenue. Now look at the real-world mirror. DJT's literal home, command center, and the birthplace of his political movement is Trump Tower, located at 725 Fifth Avenue. The book predicted that Fifth Avenue would be the exact geographic point where the old world order would fracture. When Trump won his election on Tuesday, November 8th, the immediate real-world response mirrored Lockwood's text with eerie precision. Massive, organized mobs under the banners of the modern radical groups flooded Fifth Avenue, surrounding Trump Tower, acquiring the NYPD and federal authorities to put up steel barricades and establish a permanent security fortress around the building. As the narrative of The Last President progresses into Chapter 2 and 3, the predictive programming shifts from the streets to the structural mechanics of the government. Once inaugurated, the president initiates a sweeping, aggressive agenda to dismantle the deep financial systems ruling the nation. Lockwood explicitly writes that the president's core mission is a clean sweep of the ship of state. This is the 19th century literal translation of the modern political war cry, drain the swamp. Furthermore, the president in the book immediately issues an executive order targeting the central banking cartel, demanding the immediate abandonment of the so-called gold reserve, to strip power away from the international money leaders and return financial sovereignty to the common people. This perfectly mirrors the populist platform that has systematically targeted the Federal Reserve and international globalist trade structures in the modern era. But the text enters even more uncanny territory when it describes the president's inner circle. In Lockwood's book, the populist leader relies heavily on a key trusted advisor named Lafroy Pence. So let that sink in. The fictional president's right-hand man is named Pence. Over a century before, a real populist president would select Mike Pence as his vice president to help him navigate the treacherous waters of Washington. The book's final acts detail a nation completely fractured by the populist upending. Lockwood predicts deep, unyielding threats of secession, stating that the nation would begin to split into distinct regional factions. He specifically references a movement split Texas into separate states, including an East Texas and a West Texas, to disrupt the balance of power. The ultimate climax of Lockwood's prophecy occurs at the very end of the manuscript. The book states that the Speaker of the House takes an unprecedented step of attempting to block and cancel the president's state address, before ultimately relenting under immense pressure. This exact hyper-specific political standoff manifested in real life when the Speaker of the House delayed the State of the Union address during a government shutdown. The book concludes with the physical destruction of the Capitol dome itself, leading to a vote that officially dissolves the United States government as it was originally known. This is why the book is titled The Last President. The predictive programming is telling us that the rise of the specific Fifth Avenue anchored populist archetype is the final fuse. It signals the completion of a predetermined cycle designed to completely reset the financial, physical, and temporal matrix of the American empire. This temporal loop was not left solely in the pages of the obscure 19th century literature. To prepare the collective subconscious for this disruption, the media grid deployed a targeted sequence of subliminal scripts by filtering out empty vanity cameos and isolating only the narratives encoded with deep conspiracy themes, alternative mirrors, and literal timelines. A highly precise predictive programming blueprint emerges. So, the 1980s and the altered timeline. In this opening phase, the media established the archetype of a ruthless, non-traditional mogul seizing control of time and space to capture political authority. Back to the Future Part 2 in 1989, screenwriter Bob Gale explicitly confirmed that the tyrannical alternative 1985 version of Biff Tannen was a direct warning based on DJT. The plot reveals a terrifyingly precise blueprint. Biff uses a cheating mechanism from the future, the Sports Almanac, to completely break and corrupt the native timeline. With his unearned billions, he builds a garish 27-story casino penthouse tower, completely destroys the existing municipality, and turns a quiet town into an autocratic police state where he controls the politicians. It is the earliest major cinematic rendering of a timeline altered by a casino tycoon. Now, in 1990s, the script shifted away from simple corporate greed and began embedding hyper-specific geopolitical agendas and direct presidential prophecies into the public's daily media consumption. So you have Eerie, Indiana in 1992, Season 1, Episode 18, Zombies and PJs. In an extraordinary piece of subliminal messaging, the show features a sinister, fast-talking marketing manipulator named Donald Freeze. Freeze uses television broadcasts to brainwash the town's citizens into a state of consumerist obedience. His ultimate operational goal is to seal off the town entirely from the outside world by constructing a massive, high-tech, inescapable wall around its perimeter. Decades before the real-world border wall became a defining global issue, a television script tied the name Donald to a media wizard obsessed with constructing a physical barrier around a territory. Then you have Suddenly Susan in 1997, Season 1, Episode 19. The script bypasses metaphor completely to plant a direct temporal marker. The archetype's face is planted on the cover of a magazine within the show. A character looks directly at the image and delivers a line that serves as explicit predictive programming, asking it out loud if he could be our next president. So by the turn of the millennium, the programming transitioned away from speculative fiction and institutionalized the premise outcome of the timeline, conditioning the collective mind to accept absolute executive command. So this gives us The Simpsons in 2000, season 11, episode 17, Bart to the Future, the most famous temporal anomaly in modern television. A full 16 years before the 2016 election, the script features Lisa Simpson ascending to the presidency. Sitting in the Oval Office, she directly charts the collapse of the system by stating, "As you know, we've inherited quite a budget crunch from President Trump." The script didn't just predict the identity of a future leader, it predicted the precise structural destabilization of the empire that would follow his departure. You have The Apprentice in 2004 to 2015. This was not standard reality programming. It was a decade-long mass psychological conditioning experiment. Every single week, primetime television broadcast an identical corporate ritual. A monolithic leader sitting at the apex of a darkened boardroom, single-handedly rewriting fates and executing the unworthy with a lethal verbal command. "You're fired." The masses were systematically trained to associate his voice with absolute, unquestioned administrative authority. Now, to understand how a 19th century prophecy and 40 years of television scripts translate into modern political dominance, you have to look at the technical mechanism that bridges the gap between literature and reality. You have to look at the FBI, and you have to look at Nikola Tesla. In January of 1943, Nikola Tesla died alone in room 3327 of the New York hotel. Tesla was a man who weaponized the ether, a genius who openly claimed that he was developing death rays, wireless power grids, and advanced electromagnetic systems capable of distorting time and space. Within hours of his death, agents from the FBI's Office of Alien Property custodian sweep into his room, seizing every trunk, blueprint, and scrap of paper the inventor possessed. The federal government possessed the keys to the cosmos, but they lacked the specialized intellect required to read Tesla's highly complex theoretical mathematics. They needed a brilliant, elite scientist they could completely trust with the nation's deepest secrets. Out of every physicist in the United States, the FBI called exactly one man, Dr. John G. Trump. Dr. John Trump was a legendary MIT engineer, a pioneer in high-voltage radiation, and the paternal uncle of DJT. For days, Uncle John analyzed Tesla's private papers, officially concluding to the public that nothing of immediate danger or viability existed. Alternative history researchers have long questioned the official narrative. Did the Trump family retain or inherit access to the classified foundational blueprints of Tesla's suppressed physics? Did they uncover the mathematical calculations for temporal distortion? The name Bolger serves as a bizarre linguistic marker pointing out directly to this federal gatekeeping network. In Lockwood's 1889 manuscript, the dog Bolger is little Barron Trump's fiercely loyal companion, the ultimate insider guide helping him navigate dangerous hidden worlds. In the real-world matrix, as the modern Trump family was building its skyline empire in Manhattan, the most untouchable, protected figure navigating the American criminal underworld was James Whitey Bolger, a man completely shielded and guided for decades by corrupt factions within the highest levels of the FBI. The same name appears as the ultimate insider guide in both the literary prophecy and the dark underbelly of modern history. But the loop doesn't close in the mid-20th century. The final alignment to this temporal puzzle occurred during the recent election cycles when DJT officially joined forces with Elon Musk. The alliance was far more than a political merger of convenience. It was a profound symbolic completion of a circuit. Elon Musk did not invent the electric car company he runs. He took it over and preserved a specific identity. He branded it Tesla Motors, explicitly tying his global technological empire to the archetype of Nikola Tesla's suppressed legacy. When the Trump family and Elon Musk formed their historic alignment, the bloodlines and symbols fused perfectly. It was the convergence of the keepers of the papers, the Trump family, who held the legacy of Uncle John's FBI archive, and the bearer of the name, Elon Musk, who carried the banner of Tesla into the modern tech frontier. This brings us to the deepest, most unsettling layer of the Matrix, the massive Department of Justice document releases from the Epstein files. While the public remains hyper-focused on the superficial political scandals buried within those millions of pages, investigative analysts have noticed a far more calculated pattern. The communication logs reveal an intense, decades-long proximity between global elite networks, tech billionaires, and political dynasties. Public reporting has established that Jeffrey Epstein wasn't merely running a leverage operation, he was deeply obsessed with transhumanism, genetic engineering, and cryogenics. His ultimate goal was to seed the human race with elite genetics and harness radical frontier science to achieve life extension. The global elite have never been interested in ordinary politics. The Epstein files drop clues that the upper echelons of society are actively tracking, funding, and trying to weaponize the exact brand of advanced physics and elite bloodline coordination that Tesla pioneered and Lockwood foretold. If you want the ultimate proof that this timeline isn't organic, if you want to see the literal operational blueprint used by the global elite to map out this exact administrative chaos in advance, you have to look at the tabletop. Specifically, Steve Jackson's Modern Illuminati 2nd Edition and its targeted expansions. When the game developers completely overhauled the classic game for the 21st century, they dropped the outdated 20th century concepts and introduced a devastating new gameplay mechanic, the media alignment, where information itself is coded as a direct weapon of warfare. Through this updated deck, the hidden architects laid out the exact playbook DJT would use to seize the modern narrative and navigate the office. It begins with the execution of the digital base. The modern edition features vloggers and social media cards. In the game, these groups receive massive operational bonuses to control and destroy rival networks. This is the exact blueprint of the administration's media strategy, bypassing traditional White House press channels and using direct digital broadcast to systematically neutralize legacy news networks. To protect this digital echo chamber, the game produces the alternative truths card. In gameplay, this card allows an actor to completely rewrite the active rules of the board by deploying a misleading headline that scrambles every opponent's strategy. It is the literal tabletop rendering of the weaponized narrative redirection that defined the post-2016 landscape, creating parallel realities so fast that the public can never anchor themselves to objective facts. So the game architects didn't stop at media strategy. To document the exact political gridlock of the presidency, they released the dedicated Illuminati 2020 expansion set. For the first time, they bypassed sneaky proxies and dropped an explicit, ultra-powerful personality node onto the board, the Donald, or the President card. This card functions as a chaotic disruptor capable of shifting alignments instantly, throwing the global power structure into an immediate gridlock. Predicting the exact nature of his later years in office, the modern edition integrated the Antifa and civil unrest cards. In the game, players use these specific groups to systematically drain the financial income and stability of corporate and government nodes. It predicted a presidency defined by constant, volatile domestic friction and organized street-level resistance. And why was this gridlock necessary? Because of the final entity printed into the modern deck, the Deep State card. In the game, the Deep State operates entirely from the shadows, making its controlled assets completely immune to normal attacks from visible government entities. It perfectly mirrors the real-world administrative warfare, a populist president attempting to execute policy while being systematically blocked by an unelected visible institutional framework. This brings us to the final shattering synthesis. Why did Steve Jackson Games delete dozens of obsolete cards when updating the deck for our current era, yet deliberately choosing to keep and modernize the rewriting history card? Because the game mechanics openly state that the past is plastic. The rewriting history card allows a player to alter past actions on the board, proving that the elite temporal manipulation is an active tool. We are not watching an organic timeline. The modern cards show that the Deep State alternative truths, and the president cards are being deployed in real time to manage a reality that was already mathematically locked in when Uncle John Trump opened Nikola Tesla's trunks in 1943. The visible political game is merely a front for the execution of a highly calculated, multi-generational script where the suppressed science of the past has become the absolute reality of the present. So that's all I've got for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you want to see more about the Illuminati card game, go ahead and drop it in the comments below and tell me what you'd like me to map out. Until next time, I love you guys. Stay safe, and remember, don't drink that. I'm out of here.